Are you surprised there's been 0 criminal charges filed against Deshaun Watson?
Hard to say, because I'm having a hard time, Jake, figuring out, has anybody actually gone to the Houston Police Department? Has there been any investigation opened? For example, we know there's an NFL investigation opened a few weeks ago into this. From a police standpoint, Tony Busby mentioned that he will get information to the police and that he was in communication with a detective. Then the Houston Police Department released a statement saying they have not heard anything from Tony Busby. They have not been in communication with anybody complaining about Deshaun Watson. So then Busby releases, a text exchange between him and one alleged specific detective. I know that the Harris County District Attorney's Office, their spokesman said that it would be inappropriate for them to comment at this time about these ongoing civil allegations. I don't know if I'm surprised, because I don't know what information the police have. I don't know if any of the accusers have gone to the police, and it's hard for me to be surprised at there being or not being criminal allegations, because I just don't know who has gone to the police and who has not.
Meltser with us here, host on Sirius XM, also an attorney at law, so the perfect guy to have on to talk about the latest with Deshaun Watson. Mike, as far as the commissioner's exempt list, it seems like there's a lot of confusion out there on what it would take for the NFL to actually put Watson on the exempt list. Correct me if I'm wrong, but criminal charges do not need to be filed for the NFL to step in and basically put Watson on paid leave.
That's correct. That's my reading of the personal conduct policy of the NFL, Jake. I know Peter King last Monday made a big deal about the distinction between the criminal and civil allegations. My reading of the NFL's personal conduct policy is that the NFL, in their investigation, if they deem that a player has violated the conduct policy, they have pretty wide discretion about putting a player on the commissioner's exempt list.
Do you expect him to eventually get placed there? I mean, you mentioned it, 19 cases have been filed, 3 more still to come. I mean, how many cases have to be filed for the NFL to step in?
It's interesting because I don't know what incentive or what timeline the NFL is going with here, because there are no games right now, and there are no games for a while. What the NFL wants to do with that exempt list is avoid the public relations nightmare that you have when you've got criminal charges filed or maybe really bad civil charges filed, and it takes the legal process a while to play out. The NFL calendar is kind of stuck in stone. They're playing every single Sunday. And so Adrian Peterson would be a good example of that. I think we're still early enough in the process to where my answer, Jake, unfortunately, is I don't know if they'll put him on the exempt list. If the Texans were playing games right now, every single Sunday, I could see where they would be incentivized to do that. But keep in mind, Roger Goodell, it does seem like after the Ezekiel Elliott suspension a few years ago, has been a lot more hands-off when it comes to player discipline. Antonio Brown just won a Super Bowl, and he's had an NFL investigation into an alleged rape that's been going on and is still open. So that's something to be aware of, that Goodell has been a lot more hands-off in the last year or two.
Great point. All right, finally, Mike, from a football standpoint, Deshaun, of course, had a trade request. He wanted to leave the Texans. Every report was he'd never play another snap for them. At this point, though, because I think we look at it like he's going to play football at some point down the line, do you see any scenario where they could still trade him before the season, or do you think at this point it's safe to say all trade talks with Deshaun Watson are off the table till some of this gets resolved?
Jake, I think they've got to be on ice for now, because if you're a team to make a trade for Watson now, you'd almost be saying, by virtue of executing that deal, that they don't believe any of these accusers and they don't believe the story that's in SI, which I'm not saying we should believe them or not, but when we talk about it, we're not like making a trade for the player. So my take, which I think is your take as well, is everything's got to be on ice for a while. From a timeline standpoint, I think that will take us to after the NFL draft, which is about a month from now, give or take. And for a team to trade for Watson, I think there's going to have to be some sort of progress or more information as far as what Rusty Hardin knows in his investigation, what the NFL knows in their investigation as well. I just think we have to make some forward progress here as far as actually creating some resolutions here before Watson as a trade possibility comes back to the forefront.